We are the youth of Nepal. We are here for our cause because there has been a deadlock in the country's situation. We have been waited for more than 3 years for the constitution, and it has not come out. Though the constitution assembly member have taken the wages, they are enjoying the benefits, but where is the constitution? Nobody knows. And we are here to make a point. We need our constitution. We are aware about what is happening, and we want to bring change, and that's it. We don't know what we will do or what's there in future. We know that we are here to speak. Our voices must be heard.
Like many Nepalis today, Ujjwal Thapa is a frustrated and angry man. Frustrated by his country's chronic political instability and angered by the failure of its politicians to deliver on their promises. In the past 19 years, Nepal has had almost as many different governments, endured a civil war that cost the lives of more than 15,000 people, and lurched from one economic crisis to another. So while hundreds of thousands of Nepalis vote with their feet and leave the country every year in search of a better life, those who are left behind have decided now is the time to act.
So what we're doing is we're basically mobilizing citizens to start to show up, to stand up and to speak up. And basically I think that silence is something that needs to be broken.
If you had a single message that you wanted to direct to the politicians, what would that message be?
Well, I think you better be careful about what you're doing, because I think the new generation, we want to protect our future, and we are willing to sacrifice much to protect our future in Nepal.
Well, we're nearing some kind of a climax, and it's been a journey that started, the last chapter started in February 2006. After the war ended, the king was sidelined, a people power uprising on the streets was successful to restore democracy. And a lot has changed in the last 5.5 years. I think what we sort of forget sometimes in Nepal, because we don't see the forest for the trees, is what a dramatic transformation of state structure this has been. We've gone from monarchy to republic, we've gone from war to peace, people who are underground guerrilla fighters have gone on to be prime ministers and ministers in government, defense minister. So it's almost South Africa style change, very dramatic. And like in South Africa, the first few years were messy, and it's the same here. It's just that I think, unlike South Africa, we don't have a statesman, someone who looks ahead, who can give direction. And so things are floundering now because it is all degenerated into a power struggle.
Blame, of course, it squarely goes to all the actors, political parties. But if you ask me personally, I will say that it's the Maoists, because they have the combatants who are in the cantonments, and they want to have that combatants intact, complete the constitution making process and go for elections. It means we will have two armies, which Nepali Congress will never ever accept that. Ball is in Maoist court now.
जब संविधान बनेन भन्ने कुरा भयो, संविधानको प्रक्रिया तीव्र गतिले अगाडि बढ्यो, उहाँहरूले त्यो संविधान निर्माणलाई प्राथमिकता पनि राख्नु भन्न उहाँहरूले। तपाईं राज्यको पुनर्संरचनामा जब चाहिँ लोकेन्द्र बिष्टको चाहिँ सभापतित्वको समितिले चाहिँ एउटा बहुमतले जब एउटा प्रस्ताव पास गर्यो, त्यसपछि तपाईं नेपाली कांग्रेस लगायतका यथास्थितिलाई प्रतिनिधित्व गर्ने शक्तिहरूले चाहिँ संविधान सभाको बैठक राख्ने कामहरू पनि गरेनन्, अवरोध गरिदिने खालका कामहरू गरे।
I don't think integration of the armies and all is a real stumbling block. I think it's the lack of trust between the Maoist and non-Maoist parties over some very fundamental values like democracy and free press and all that. So the non-Maoist parties absolutely do not trust the leader of the Maoist party and other leaders when they say that, yes, of course, we are now, a democratic party, because they say, you haven't given up your armies, you haven't given up your vigilante force, you haven't returned property you seized during the war, and you refuse to say sorry for the war crimes that you committed during the war. That's what the democratic parties say. And the Maoist parties, of course, say, you guys, you ruined the country for the last 20 years. We're trying to bring fundamental changes to the state structure so that we can move ahead. And you are status quoists and you don't want to change.
There's a strong lack of trust amongst any other community, whether it is Himali, Pahadi or Madheshi, whatever community you talk about. We don't have trust. The Pahadis, they don't trust over us. We don't trust over them. The Himalis, they don't trust over Pahadis. Pahadis, they don't trust over Himalis. There's a long gap, and there's no debate still going on. We talk about constitution, but constitution will not solve each and everything in our community particularly. Even today, if you go inside, the constitution doesn't matter anything for them. They're only concerned with their daily livelihood, daily wage, going to small cottage industries and earning 50 or 100 rupees per day, and somehow surviving in this competitive environment. If you go outside Kathmandu, you'll find such grave problems that people are not able to access proper sanitary water. They don't have medical treatment facilities. They are bound to go to India, and there are multiple problems. For me, I'm a student of management. This country is not managed.
Well, the situation's dramatically better than it was if you were here 5 years ago. But Nepal is a country which is really suffering chronic hazards. In particular, the highest on the list by far is malnutrition and food insecurity. We have 3.5 million Nepalis that are food insecure, severely food insecure. That also affects nutrition. The stunting rates in Nepal for children are about 50%. That's some of the highest rates in the world. And we have concerns certainly about the general degradation in the productivity of agriculture as people vote with their feet, leave the country to find jobs. Men leave. 1 in 3 adult men are out of the country now looking for work outside, leaving women to run farms and manage children and so forth. And that's in itself contributed to the deterioration in the agricultural product.
Well, it's very obvious that agriculture doesn't attract the young generation, and there is a very high migration towards India or towards Middle East because the people can make money, and the things that nowadays they cannot make money in agriculture. So when you go to some villages, you see only women and children because the main workforce has gone away. At the same time, the investment in agriculture has been very low for the last several years. Nepal used to be an exporter of staple crops like rice and wheat, in some cases maize, etc. And it is obvious that in the last 10-15 years, it has become a net importer. And it's mainly also because of a lack of interest at the central level, at the policy level, a lack of interest in agriculture, and where people have been focusing more on food aid rather than developing agriculture at the root level.
Human rights violations, and in particular disappearances, were one of the hallmarks of Nepal's civil war. At one point during the conflict, Nepal held the unenviable record for the highest number of politically motivated disappearances anywhere in the world. And according to human rights activists like Mandira Sharma, little progress has been made in ending the culture of impunity that has plagued Nepal's justice system for so long.
Not even a single case has been prosecuted so far. That shows you the extent of impunity in this country. It's not because we don't have sufficient evidences. It's not because human rights community here is very weak. It's not because victims really don't want this. It's because the political parties, the government is really protecting the perpetrators. And what we learn from our own history and the history of so many other countries that have really gone through the similar kind of conflict is that if you really don't address some of these serious crimes of human rights violations and prosecute those people, it will be repeated again. It will come back again. The cumulative effect of this will be another conflict.
Do you think, Doctor, that there's a risk of Nepal going back into a situation of conflict?
I do see that situation if we don't complete the peace process as fast as we can.
संवैधानिक शून्यता सिर्जना गरेर संविधान सभालाई भङ्ग गरेर एउटा कुनै प्रकारको निरङ्कुशतातर्फ लैजान चाहिँ यहाँका पुराना शक्तिहरू यथास्थितिवादी शक्तिहरू या बाह्य शक्तिहरू सफल भए भनेदेखि देश चाहिँ फेरि द्वन्द्वको गृहयुद्धको दिशामा जाने.
I don't think the Maoist party has the stomach to go back to war, and I don't think the army wants to go back to war either. But the longer this transition continues, the danger grows. Because look, the problems that we had before the war started, the problems that we had when the war ended, all those problems have got much acuter. They've become much more serious. Joblessness, inflation, the people's frustration, the struggle to, to live from day to day.
And there's a failed political process. People look for a savior. People look for an alternative that will protect themselves. I think people become more selfish. And I think extremist groups, extreme religious groups, extreme ethnic groups are preparing themselves. I believe that they're preparing themselves. You can see it in tomorrow's Bandh. It's been called by ethnic groups. And I think that's where people are going to fall back to. And when that happens, when people are bound by ethnicity, by their tribes, by their religions, I think violence becomes much more possible in Nepal.